Good morning. Today on Shallibodhran, I got asked a question. I thought I'd make a good video. And the question was this. When I am playing the drum, and let me just bring the camera down a bit. The question was, when I'm playing, and I'm trying to get some nice bass tones out of it, why is it that the bass tone tends to break up and suddenly it's more difficult to find it? I emailed the person back and said, what kind of drum do you have? How big is it? What's the problem? And I got an answer back. This person has two drums. They are both 18-inch drums. So I grabbed an 18-inch drum and hopefully I could answer them with it. And part of the problem is that you're playing an 18-inch drum. And I then wrote back saying, asking, how do you play? How do you roll the bass up and down? And they do it mostly like the way I do, which is from the top and down and inward. So sort of like a bottom end style player. I don't usually go from the bottom up as much in the same way unless I'm playing top end. So why are they getting, and it was very nice of them actually, because they sent me this picture of them playing, and what I got, and maybe I should use a bundle tipper to make it a little more eloquent, is this. They had nice full tones. And then not so nice, and then nice, and then not so nice. They're specifically looking at the walking bass sort of idea. Yeah. So their question was, why is it sounding so bad? I said, well, first thing to check for is your tuning. It's the first video I made, which is how to tune the drum. Make sure that all the tuners are equal. If the tuners aren't equal, the drum isn't going to resonate properly. See, this one has a problem on it. If you don't have the tuners set up, obviously the drum is not going to perform as it should. So they jumped on Facebook Messenger, wrote back saying everything's tightened up. Now they got everything good. Now I do. But here's another reason why you might have some weird tuning. For example, and this is a good example for an 18-inch drum, you have 6 tuning lugs. Now on an 18-inch drum, 6 tuning lugs is pretty much the norm I usually see for a lot of manufacturers. Some other companies will make them with 8. And to be perfectly honest, while it is annoying to go around and tune all of them, the more the better, because there are small little spots of deviance between the two tuning lugs as you go around, that is. So if you're playing, you get a nice sound, and then you start losing it, or if you're playing around the head and suddenly you're getting something that feels wrong, not this one, this is now tuned up properly, it's probably due to the fact that there's so much space in between the tuning lugs that there actually is a tuning difference. It's minute, but it does exist, and it's the reason why manufacturers make drums with so many tuning lugs. It is not always necessary, though. You have to ask the manufacturer of your drum whether or not this was intended or not. So ask them that. But still, I get the question, why is it still not sounding very good? Tipper they're using is a heavier weighted dowel tipper. And I said, probably it's the dowel tipper. And they're like, no, I use all my tippers and they still have this same problem. Okay. What else is there? Well, remember when I said it's because it's an 18-inch drum? Do you remember why I use my little Hedvig Shack 14-inch for recording most of my videos? It's because it's so easy to hit the walking bass, and it takes very little effort to get a very good sound. 18-inch drums are harder for that. So when they're playing and they're using whatever it is they're playing with, There is literally a spot of success and failure because of how skins and membranes work when they're vibrating. The whole point of having the left hand is to disturb that on the back, to try to isolate frequencies in the major tone. So that's all fine and good. And if I'm way up here and I press in and out to control the bass, see how it's a little bit dirty? It sounds like it's shaving something off of it but leaving the rest. Bring it in a bit. Now try it, in and out. There's no deviation there. Bring it further in. There's a little bit of deviation. And part of the thing is, as you're playing, especially for new folks who are getting very frustrated by trying to get a clean bass sound and you've got the tuning down perfect, part of the problem is that between the bearing edge and the center, because you don't usually play across the center anyway, but if you're playing inward or up, whatever, there are sections on the drum that are not going to resonate in the same way. You're basically taking one tone or the drum's fundamental sound, and you're taking those frequencies, that big pack of frequencies, and you're isolating sections of them along the skin. So the drum really makes just one sound, but you're trying to isolate sections. And then that changes according to how you're pressing in and out, or flat, or choking it, etc. That's one of the bigger problems if you're playing a bigger drum, especially if you're a short person with short arms and this is really frustrating. Probably means you have to maybe trade up to a different drum, maybe something smaller. That's going to be true with every single tipper you make. If you're hitting those walking basses nice and clean, and then you're going to be finding that some parts of the drum don't like the bass as much. It's going to sound muddy and gross, and other parts are going to sound very, very clean. That is just something that time and effort is going to answer. You're eventually going to figure out what tippers work for you and what tippers don't. What size drums you prefer. So if this is your first drum, for example, maybe at 18 inches, it's not such a big deal. The 18-inch drum isn't for you. Maybe you want a 15 or a 14-inch. Maybe that makes more sense. If you're someone who likes bigger drums, and I do play a big drum and a small drum, I take both out when I go to events, you gotta learn to deal with what bigger drums and smaller drums can do. Right back to that first video that I made years ago, it's about size, and size often dictates how easy it is to get a walking bass out of the drum. A big drum like this is very, very difficult. The last thing is, let's say you're a top end player. Let's say you're mainly a top end player. And now you're wondering, well, how come I can't get the same effect on the drum? Maybe you have to start playing bottom end. Sometimes it isn't the drum. It's just how you're playing. It's your anthropometrics of how you're playing. Those often can be the single biggest factor in dictating what you like. Your brain might be set on this big Celtic drum, but your playing ability might only be set to a 16 or a 14 or 15 inch, being more what you're capable of playing comfortably. Bigger drums take way more practice to get good at. Smaller drums are way more instantly gratifying because you can get in and out. What you end up losing, though, are all of little bits in between, sounds that you can make on these drums that you can't make on the little small ones. There's a lot more that you can attain on a great big drum that you can't make on small drums. So the long and short of this is practice, familiarity. it sort of follows the 10,000 hour rule. After so much practice, you are eventually going to get good. There's just no way around it. And the third thing is really, maybe the drum isn't the problem. Maybe it's your body in relation to the size and diameters of the drum and the dimensions of the drum. That's probably more to it. So if you're a person who likes the diversity of sounds like myself, you're going to own a diverse set of drums. I have 14s all the way up to 20 inch. If you're someone who is very, very specific and you're trying to get, I don't know, maybe you're trying to get a John Joe Kelly sound out of an 18 inch, you're not going to get it. If you're trying to get something like a Jocelyn Fonel sound out of it, you're playing the wrong type of drum. And you're not playing one of these. And you're not playing one of these. For the most part, you're playing a drumstick, a kit drumstick, that has been sawed down into something. So a lot of it has to do with how you're playing it and what you're playing it with. You just can't replicate some styles of people you like playing onto some instruments. Sometimes the limitation is the instrument, sometimes the limiting thing is the tipper, and sometimes the limiting thing is the player and the player's dimensions. So that was a cool question. It kind of focused on several videos that I did, but it definitely hinted on the original. So find something comfortable. Always ask people, ask makers, get feedback. If you're short, ask short people. If you're tall, ask tall people. And like a lot of things in this, world we live in of too much instant gratification, it takes practice and it takes time. I cannot tell you how many times I had my old Waltons. Thankfully, this is not my Waltons, but my old Waltons sitting by the beach, farting around, trying to get the sounds that I wanted to get, plus learning the instrument's ability. That's what I have this one here and why I taped the head on it. I wanted a little more bass out of it, so I taped the head. Gave me a little more control. I didn't want to kill the overtones, so the head isn't heavily taped. So there are some things you can modify and some things you can't. It's just one of those things where time and error, trial and error, and you're not going to get it right away. If you get it right away, you're either a prodigy or extremely lucky. So take your time. It's never a race to be half decent at this, and it's supposed to be fun. So until next time, bye.